Good morning and welcome to our Sunday morning adult educational forum. This is for Sunday, April 26th. Glad to have you with us. I hope you enjoyed the worship service this morning. As always, we want to start our forum with our 7 principles of discernment. And today we're going to talk about the assessment, what we've learned about our experience of online communion on Easter Sunday morning. But because we're discussing communion, we always want to review, no matter what we're discussing, our 7 principles of assessment and discernment. So it's respect, listening, speaking for ourselves, understand other viewpoints, gratitude, forgiveness, and the 8th commandment. Now, we use these as 7 principles for discernment when we're in large groups, when we're discussing things at church. But I'm going to suggest that we start using them at home, because I don't know about you, but my guess is yours experience is like mine. I'm spending a lot more time with Nina at home, and we're discussing everything. Every time we take a look at the news at night, there are issues. And before, we didn't have time to discuss everything. Now we are discussing and agreeing on some things, disagreeing with others. And so I think whether we're talking about communion or other important matters like when the state will open up for business, have you discussed that at home? I bet you have. Or whether you're discussing really important issues like when my wife is going to cut my hair, all those things are now about communal discernment. We want to use all our principles both here at church and at home. So that's first. Second, announcement 2 about our bonus Bible study. Now, the bonus Bible study has already happened. It was on Thursday, so before this Sunday forum. But I hope that you'll go back and watch it online, because we're talking about other churches and how they've experienced communion. Mostly we've been just talking about us at Emmanuel, right? We've been discerning how we would proceed with online communion, whether we do it or not, how we would do it. It's all been rather internally focused. Well, let me tell you, your neighbors are struggling with the same issues, those who go to church, big time, whether they are the ELCA, whether Presbyterians, Methodists, Roman Catholics. We're reading about this all the time now, how they're struggling with what to do with Holy Communion, how to celebrate it or not, and the Eastern churches, the Orthodox churches. We're going to go over all that. I think you're going to find it exciting because communion goes to the heart of Christian practice. All our theology, all our practice often comes together with the communion experience. And so now, wow, people are struggling. They're trying to move forward in their spiritual practice. And to be quite honest, it's been that way throughout church history. So join us for the bonus Bible study. So let's begin. Easter assessment. Some of this will be repeating things I've mentioned in the past, but we want a broad understanding of what happened. And first, the assessment, you should know that somewhere between 1,000 people and 1,350 joined us for online communion live on Easter, between 1,000 and 1,350. It was an amazing Sunday, and it was a strong response. 69% of those who attended were right here from Naples, or at least from Florida, and 31% were from somewhere else in the country, which shows that people are staying connected with Emmanuel even when they go back to their home churches. And the Lord blessed the experience. I think you just have to say that. We've gotten a lot of feedback through your emails and through photos that you've sent back. And boy, it's just been positive. In fact, it's been extremely positive, the feedback that we have received. So I'm going to give you some of those photos again today to show you how people set up their tables at home. And then I'm going to read some of the emails that we received. I'm not going to mention the names, but I'll mention some of the comments so that you can follow these beautiful comments and reflections that we've been receiving here at Emmanuel. So let me start with, again, some pictures. And I should say, we're going to show a few of them today, but we're going to publish all the pictures in our newsletter over the next couple months. We're not going to put them all. We got so many. We're not going to put them all in one newsletter, but you'll see some Jennifer will publish in May, and then in June and July, we want to publish all the pictures that were sent in because we so appreciated seeing them. But here again, I want to just pick out different aspects of each of these tables, each of these altars at home, and be thinking when you see these about how you will set up your table the next time. Maybe you want to make some adjustments. And so I guess I've already, spoiler alert, we're going to have online communion again in May, but we'll discuss that in a second. But when you look at these, you might get some ideas about next time we celebrate online communion, how you would like to set up your table. Here again, if you can see it, the palm in the background sets the atmosphere. I love the silver tray, the candles in the background. Someone here has really put a lot of work in putting together a beautiful table. This was Nina's at our home. And of course, the flowers were beautiful. You see the technology. She followed it on an iPad with the candlesticks. But in particular, I want to point out that was the bread baked by our own Pat Day that he left for us. That made the experience extra special. I love this picture because it doesn't just have the two glasses. Remember, we emphasized that we wanted each person to have a glass, a candle, and the bread. But this book of personal prayer next to it set a very special atmosphere that the whole experience of online communion, as we've said in the past, was marinated in prayer. Many of our pictures had families included, so you could tell who was communing, but not all of them included their dogs. And so we were thrilled to see the family gathering, the flowers, but the dogs as well. I like this shot because it says something about the age we're in, doesn't it? That here we are celebrating communion. It's a very simple setup with two candles, bread, and two glasses of wine. And yet here, this big TV, right? Technology is just playing a huge role. In fact, that's how we're connecting now. It's how the whole congregation is connecting. And so in my thinking, this is symbolic of what's happening in the church and in our broader culture. Look at the crucifix in the background, the cup of wine that's ceramic, the beautiful flower, the Bible opened up to the words of institution in Matthew 27:28, and of course the palm frond made into the symbol of a cross, a very old practice in the church, one that's, I bet many at home have done this too. We keep our palm fronds from Easter, and then we make a cross and keep that cross throughout the Easter season. Again, seeing faces is special because we're not seeing each other anymore. And so I liked many of the photographs included our friends and the members of the congregation so that we could see you. When we do this service on Sunday, we're all alone in the sanctuary, and it's hard to know what's happening out in people's homes and in their living rooms. And so here you see Ellie and Tom, again with the technology in the background, the cross, the bread, the wine, the candle, a lovely setup. You know, these are simple setups, but they're powerful. And I wanted to know when I saw this, whether this plate, as you can see, or we formally call it the paten in the sanctuary, whether that was from Israel. It looks like from design, both the flagon, we would call it, and the paten go together. Obviously, a beautiful design. I just love to know. Did someone buy this when they were in Israel at some point? Again, isn't it great to see faces? It's great to see couples celebrating communion together. But this is one of the few pictures we receive with Easter lilies. which is the symbol for resurrection and new life. Again, the Bible opened up to Matthew's gospel, set up for two, with the glass, with the bread, with the candle. And my guess is the technology's in the background. Once again, great to see faces, great to see familiar faces. On this one, I not only love the setup, but the attention to detail, in particular the candle snuffer, because that was unique. I don't know if I saw too many of those in the pictures, but the detail is just wonderful to see in all these pictures. And this is our final shot for today. And one of the things that was striking to me, the two cups, the candles, the Bible open, but also the family being included. And I'm guessing these are grandkids who've been included, so that as we always talk about the fellowship around the table and how wonderful that when we can fellowship with a spouse or a family, but here to remember those in our families as well. So again, I want to thank you for those photographs. We're going to publish all of them. And I hope you're getting some ideas too to say, okay, the next time we celebrate online communion, either I want to do it the same as I did last time, which is great, that you're kind of creating a tradition, or you say, oh, no, we want to, maybe we want to do this a little bit differently the next time we arrange our table. Now, so I've already hinted at a decision that was made by the church council and the pastoral staff this week. The feedback has been so positive that we have decided that beginning on May 3rd, so next Sunday, if you're watching this on April 26th, next Sunday, we will once again celebrate online communion on May the 3rd. And the decision is that we will now celebrate online communion twice a month, on the first and on the third Sundays of each month. So all summer in May and June and July. What we're saying is really until the coronavirus threat subsides and we can all meet together in the sanctuary. Now, we don't think that someone's just going to flip a switch. That's the metaphor everyone's using now, so that all of a sudden we're all going to be rushing back to church. We doubt if that's going to happen, but at some point we think some will want to come back into the sanctuary when we're given permission, and others will say, no, I want to stay at home. So we'll have to play this a little bit by ear, of course. This is new territory for all of us, but we want to begin in May. We'll go, we think, through the summer with one worship service in the sanctuary in English, and of course one in Spanish. We'll be offering communion on the 1st and the 3rd, and of course we'll announce that all in advance so that you know. Now, having said that, I've got to just acknowledge that the majority of people who gave us their feedback, the vast majority, requested that we would celebrate communion online every Sunday. Many said this was part of their regular spirituality. This was a part of their regular worship. And they had such a positive experience on the Sunday, on Easter, that they felt, okay, why don't we just do this now every Sunday? That was their suggestion. And like I said, it was the vast majority of the feedback that we received. Now, I'm sure there are other opinions of the church, but those are those were the notes, the emails that we received. So we want to acknowledge that. At the same time, the feeling among the pastors right now is let's go slow. Because this is a new practice, let's just go slow. We'll go the 1st and 3rd Sundays so that we can prepare. We can announce that ahead of time, that people can set up their tables. They're not surprised when they join the live stream. And again, we're encouraging this to be a live stream event. But we want to go slow, and then we will see how we accommodate as a congregation. What's the ongoing experiences? We're going to keep getting feedback. If in the middle of the summer, or the beginning of the summer, or the end of the summer, we have to make adjustments, we will. But for now, 1st and 3rd Sunday of every month. So now, We got about 60 emails and comments from our people, and I'd like to share just some of them. Of course, we don't have time for all of them, but I thought some that were characteristic of many of the others. And each one had something new and fresh. And I just was lifted up myself by reading through these comments, but I'm not going to read off the names of who wrote them. I hope I won't in any case. But I will mention the comments so you get an idea of some of the things we've been reading. And this person writes in and is responding to some of the questions that I had asked before in the bonus Bible study. The person wrote, "The communion experience for me on Sunday was excellent, clearly aided by the suggested setup of communion on a table, on a stand, with a cross, open Bible, bread and wine." That's the way they had set it up in their home. It was obviously different from our normal experience in the sanctuary, but was an excellent alternative that felt like a very real communion, and I felt blessed by it. Secondly, as to frequency of communion, I am very much a fan of weekly communion as well as special services. I'm inclined to favor weekly communion as long as we have virtual worship services, since the coronavirus remains an emergency or at least an urgent situation. I do not feel any changes are needed in the virtual communion service in order to enhance the experience for me. And finally, the Easter experience was very fulfilling for me, including the communion service, and did not raise any theological or practical issues that were of concern to me or need addressing. Thanks for the experience, and I wish you and the family and the whole church safety and freedom from COVID-19. So again, kind of ran through all those three questions that we asked, and many people did the same thing. They took each question and then they gave answers to them. And here's one I like. The experience was very emotional for me. I almost cried at one point. Now, my husband was tempted to go faster than directed, and I told him to wait and follow the instructions. Trust the process. It all worked out beautifully. Another person wrote a quick comment. It was a very meaningful experience. The training was great. We passed along our experience with our daughter up north for their consideration. And we heard this from several people that they were talking to their family, they were talking to friends, passing on what their friends had experienced at other congregations, and kind of sharing best practices. And boy, I'd love to hear from you too about what are your family? What's your family saying? What are they experiencing? Are there churches practicing online communion or not? Now, here's another one. Again, they go through all the questions. Describe, and they write out the questions. Describe your communion experience on Sunday. Was it similar to a normal Sunday's experience or different? And they write, spiritually, it felt the same as in church, providing me the experience to feel better, connected to the church service. Practicing versus observation. That's what they wanted to highlight. The intimacy with my husband to share communion through our faith at home during this crisis was comforting. I almost had the same emotions when we were at the altar during our wedding. I realized from this experience that many people may be in unusual circumstances or places unable to participate in their home religious rituals. As individuals, we can keep our intimate faith and tradition alive when necessary. Finally, they write, revisiting the sacrament through Bible study was great preparation for at-home Holy Communion. It was also a good refresher from my catechism education many years ago. The handout was a very helpful tool to prepare with respect and confidence. The catechism app might be a nice follow-up to share with the congregation. What this person is referring to is we do have our catechism that you can download on your phone. There's an app, which might be a great idea We've used it in the past, but I haven't emphasized it a whole lot in the last few months. And so that was a good refresher for me. Another comment. This is the fifth comment. I'm going to be reading 7 of them. Here, a couple goes into some real great nuance. And by the way, one of the great comments that I read is one couple said that normally when they watch Sunday morning online, they don't get dressed up. They stay in their jammies, and it's pretty relaxed at home. But they knew that they were going to participate in online communion that morning, so they dressed up. They said they'd gotten their Sunday best, and I can imagine maybe even with a tie, I don't know. But they felt like for the Eucharist, they not only wanted to put the best table together, but they also wanted to dress up, which I thought was fascinating. Here they write, our experience was a positive one. We met at my sister's home. We see each other too much to be too concerned about social distancing. And they had set up a nice altar-like situation for our communion. We had talked about unleavened bread on Palm Sunday and had small pieces of soda bread, individual glasses of wine, an open Bible and candles, which we forgot to light. It was solemn and respectful, like a church. The biggest difference for me was that I didn't know what to expect. Is that weird? Maybe it's good, meaning that it was not the rote experience that we may sometimes have in church. We know what to expect. So we don't think about it that much. So maybe the major difference is that this is so unusual for us that we are thinking about it much more seriously than usual. And I think that's a good thing. How often? Again, you're going to hear this often in these comments. I grew up in a situation where communion was offered very infrequently. I don't know why. Now I look forward to this part of each Sunday service. I don't think it can be offered too much. We all need it, especially when times are really confused and upsetting. Maybe I don't get the theology, but I think every Sunday would be just fine. Finally, we are anxious to hear the results of your questions and your conversations with the church council. We'll be there, meaning glued to the screen every Sunday, and look forward to our next communion. So now you know, in May, 1st and 3rd Sundays. 2 more. This one couple was interesting because they had a conversation at home about some of the most memorable communion services they had experienced. And they went back into their past, when they were kids, when they were confirmed, but also they were on the trip with Pastor Steve to Israel a few years back, where they practiced Holy Communion, I believe, at the Garden Tomb. And so here are a couple comments. Emmanuel's novel idea of having congregants participate in communion online certainly was a stroke of genius. The idea caused my wife and I to have long discussions about the concept and brought us both closer together in our spiritual lives. For me, participation in online communion caused me to pause and remember the most meaningful communions of my life. In rough chronological order, they are: my first communion as a newly confirmed Lutheran in white robe with a red carnation. As a student at Colgate University, where there was no Lutheran church, a pastor from Syracuse came to campus and shared communion with a small group of us at Chapel House on campus. He used Sunbeam bread and Manischewitz wine for the elements. Third, as a student at Temple Medical School, going to Germantown Lutheran Church with a fellow classmate, it was here that I experienced the common cup communion for the first time. At our northern home church, Trinity Lutheran in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, when we first transferred there, the senior pastor, Dr. Stuart Hardy, in administering the host, addressed me by my first name. And if he didn't know your name, he would take 2 or 3 seconds to ask you that name. And finally, our trip to the Holy Land with the group from Emmanuel involved a communion service at the site of the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem. Indeed, the cups were used for our online communion this time at Easter were the same olive wood cups, the same olive wood cups we used then. That's very special. And now the spouse responds with her own comments. In preparation for a decision about participating in online communion, my husband and I watched the 3 classes online. Following each class, we discovered there was much to share through discussions. We talked of what we knew biblically and what we studied during confirmation years. Your classes opened the avenue for us to learn and grow together in our approach to the Easter Sunday service. The discussions continued as each of us thought of one more idea, one more experience, or the current reason for this new spiritual experience. Significant experiences of Holy Communion. We are both in our 70s and lifelong Lutherans, born into families that are 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation Lutherans. Lots of traditional experiences, none of which, of course, involve the digital world and online communion. For me, the context of the service is as important as the elements, the bread and the wine. First communion as a part of a 3-Sunday experience, the public examination, confirmation, communion. That was her experience went back in the day when she was communed. They had 3 Sundays, as did I. That was my experience. Certainly significant. Attending a jazz service in New York City during altar communion, sharing altar communion with a common cup during the epidemic of HIV. With me was my lifetime friend who had attended Methodist confirmation classes alongside me, taking the Lutheran version. Years later, my husband and I shared altar communion with my parents. Between us, my mother suffering from dementia, soon to be moved to a constant care unit. And as my husband described, the communion service in the Garden Tomb in the Holy Land was meaningful to both of us. It was actually very profound. A benefit of our Easter service experience was that my husband and I were sitting side by side at home. Being choir members at Emmanuel, we are separated into our different sections. On Easter, we could share the experience together. Thank you for the opportunity for us to deepen our spiritual experiences and our understanding for the practice of communion. Finally, a couple more quick comments. One person talked about their bread that they baked for the service. Al Kittinger, Will's dad, I'll mention his name, how excited he was as he practiced for that bread. We had another couple, without thinking, but it's kind of funny, that they raised their glasses to give each other communion, and they first clinked their glasses like you would at a restaurant, and then they looked at each other in horror and thought, what have we done? And then one older couple, a former pastor, he said that it was the first time that he had kissed his wife during communion. It was a beautiful gesture. And so I share these because they've been so uplifting to us here and the pastoral staff and the staff as we read them together. We shared those with the council, which I think gave them the encouragement to move forward with communion in May and this summer on online communion. I want to thank you for all the effort of doing the classes, of sending in the photographs. Continue to send them in, because we're going to keep those as a historical record of what we experienced here during this crazy coronavirus year. And we want to continue to pray that God would bless, that God's Spirit would bless us as a congregation as we then in May continue this practice of online communion here at Naples and around the country. God bless you. Keep us, lift us up in prayer as we lift you up in prayer each and every day. Bye-bye now.